Audie Leon Murphy was born on June 20th, 1925, into a world that offered him almost nothing. He grew up in Hunt County, Texas during the worst years of the Great Depression. His family was desperately poor. Food was never guaranteed. School was often secondary to survival. By the time Audie was a teenager, he was already responsible for hunting, cooking, and caring for his younger siblings. His father had abandoned the family, and his mother would later die when Audie was still a boy. Hunger was normal. Hard work was expected. Fear was something you learned to ignore. When the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor in December 1941, Audie Murphy was just 16 years old. Like thousands of young American boys, he wanted to fight immediately. But, unlike most, he wasn't built for war. He was underage, underweight, and undersized. He stood barely 5 feet 5 inches tall and weighed just over 110 pounds. The Marine Corps turned him away. The Navy turned him away. The paratroopers turned him away. Only the U.S. Army accepted him. And even then, reluctantly. His sister falsified his birth certificate to make him appear older. The Army needed soldiers, and Murphy was willing to become one. No one who saw him at enlistment thought he would survive the war. They were wrong. Murphy entered the Army as an infantryman, the most dangerous role in the European theater. Infantrymen didn't hide behind armor. They didn't fly over the battlefield. They walked directly into it. Training taught him how to shoot, move, and obey orders. Combat taught him something else entirely. By 1943, Murphy was deployed to the Mediterranean. He fought in Sicily, then mainland Italy, then southern France. Each campaign hardened him. Each battle stripped away fear and replaced it with something colder. Focus. Men around him noticed something unusual. Murphy didn't talk much. He didn't brag. He didn't seek attention. But when things went wrong, when units froze or leaders were killed, Murphy moved forward. He earned decorations early. Bronze stars, silver stars, Purple Hearts. Not because he wanted medals, but because he refused to abandon ground once it was taken. By January 1945, Murphy was a seasoned combat leader at just 19 years old. He had already been wounded multiple times. He had seen friends die beside him. He had learned exactly how fragile life was on the front lines. That knowledge would matter soon. Eastern France. January 1945. The village of Holtzwihr sat near the Colmar Pocket, one of the last major German defensive positions on the Western Front. Winter had locked the region in ice. Snow covered open fields. Trees stood bare and brittle. Visibility was poor. Movement was slow. Murphy's unit, part of the U.S. 3rd Infantry Division, was ordered to hold defensive positions near the edge of a forest, overlooking open ground. German forces were preparing a counterattack. Everyone knew it. The Germans still had experienced troops. They still had armor. And they were desperate. This was no retreating enemy. This was a cornered one. As dawn broke on January 26th, artillery began falling. Shells ripped through trees. Shrapnel shredded branches. Men were killed before they ever saw the enemy. Murphy assessed the situation quickly. They were outnumbered. They were exposed. And if the Germans broke through, the line would collapse. The German attack intensified. Infantry moved forward behind armor. Machine guns opened fire. Mortars began landing closer. Murphy realized something critical. If his men stayed where they were, they would be wiped out. He gave the order to withdraw, a controlled pullback into the forest. The platoon began moving. But Murphy didn't go with them. Instead, he stayed behind to cover their retreat. Nearby, an American M10 tank destroyer had taken a direct hit. Flames engulfed it. Ammunition inside began to cook off. The crew abandoned it, believing it would explode at any moment. Murphy saw opportunity where others saw death. Mounted on top of the burning vehicle was a .50 caliber machine gun. He climbed onto the tank. The heat was intense. Smoke poured into Murphy's face. The metal beneath him was scorching. Each explosion inside the tank threatened to tear it apart. He didn't move. German infantry emerged from the tree line across the open field. Murphy opened fire. The 50 caliber machine gun tore through the advancing soldiers. Snow kicked up. Bodies fell. The Germans dropped for cover, stunned by the volume and accuracy of fire. Murphy adjusted calmly, firing in controlled bursts. Then the artillery began again. Shells landed closer. Shrapnel cut his legs. Burns blistered his hands. Still, he stayed. Over the radio, Murphy called in artillery strikes, correcting coordinates himself while exposed to enemy fire. He was directing fire while firing his own weapon. German soldiers believed they had encountered a fortified American position. They hadn't. They had encountered one man who refused to surrender ground. From the German side of the field, the situation made no sense. What had begun as a coordinated counterattack, infantry advancing with armored support, was now stalling in open ground. Men were pinned behind shallow cover, frozen in the snow, unable to advance or retreat without drawing fire. Every attempt to move forward was answered by long, controlled bursts from the American position ahead. German officers initially believed they were facing a well-entrenched defensive line, perhaps multiple machine gun nests supported by artillery observers hidden in the forest. The volume of fire suggested experience. The accuracy suggested discipline. They were wrong. There was only one man firing. German commanders ordered more troops forward, hoping to overwhelm the position through numbers alone. Squads advanced cautiously, spreading out, attempting to flank from the left and right. Others dropped to their bellies and crawled, inching forward through frozen ground, using shell craters for cover. Each movement was answered instantly. Murphy adjusted the heavy .50 caliber machine gun with precision, sweeping the field in arcs, firing only when targets exposed themselves. He wasn't spraying blindly. He was choosing moments, cutting down movement, stopping momentum, forcing hesitation. A German tank rolled forward through the smoke, its engine growling as it entered the field. The crew believed they could silence the American position with a single well-placed round. The turret turned, the gun fired. The shell missed. Murphy did not stop firing. The tank crew hesitated, unsure how one position could still be active under such punishment. Artillery shells continued to fall around Murphy's burning tank destroyer. Flames licked higher. Ammunition inside the vehicle detonated sporadically, sending shockwaves through the metal beneath him. Still, he stayed. German infantry attempted suppressive fire, pouring rifle and machine gun rounds toward the wreck. It did nothing. Murphy remained exposed, calling in artillery corrections over the radio between bursts of machine gun fire, calmly adjusting coordinates as if he were standing safely behind the lines. To the Germans watching from the tree line, the American position appeared unbreakable. After nearly an hour of failed advances, mounting casualties, and no progress, German commanders made the decision to pull back. The attack had stalled completely. What should have been a decisive counterstrike had been stopped cold. More than 50 German soldiers lay dead or wounded in the snow. The attack collapsed, not because of superior numbers or firepower, but because one man refused to yield ground. Only after the fighting ended did Murphy allow himself to stop. The adrenaline drained from his body all at once. Pain surged in. His legs gave out. He collapsed into the snow, barely conscious. Medics reached him moments later. They had tried to evacuate him earlier, during the worst of the fighting, but Murphy had refused. He knew that if he left, the position would fall. Now, with the battle over, there was nothing left to hold. Burns covered his hands and arms. Shrapnel wounds had torn into his legs. His uniform was blackened with soot and blood. He was shaking uncontrollably, not from fear, but from exhaustion and shock. When officers later asked why he stayed on the burning vehicle, why he continued fighting when retreat was an option, Murphy didn't frame it as bravery or sacrifice. He gave a simple explanation. They were killing my friends. There was no pride in his voice, no drama, just fact. Audie Murphy was awarded the Medal of Honor for his actions at Holtzwihr. The citation detailed what many believed impossible: single-handed defense against a superior enemy force, continued command and coordination under direct fire, accurate artillery direction while fully exposed, sustained combat action, despite wounds and burns. At just 19 years old, Murphy became the most decorated American combat soldier of World War II. Yet those who knew him said the medal never changed him. He did not celebrate. He did not boast. He rarely spoke about the event at all. To Murphy, what happened at Holtzwihr was not heroism, it was obligation. Audie Murphy survived the war, but survival came at a cost. Like many combat veterans, Murphy carried the battlefield home with him. Nightmares haunted him. Sudden noises triggered memories he couldn't escape. Sleep was often impossible. Silence was never quiet. What we now call post-traumatic stress disorder followed him for the rest of his life. Despite fame, medals, and later success, Murphy never saw himself as extraordinary. He rejected the idea that he was different from the men who didn't come home. He believed luck played as much a role as courage. When asked if he had been afraid during the fight at Holtzwihr, Murphy answered honestly. He said he was afraid the entire time. And maybe that is what makes the story endure. Because courage in the end was not the absence of fear. It was the decision to stay, when leaving would have been easier. On January 26, 1945, an entire German company was stopped by a man who refused to move. Not because he was fearless, but because he would not let others die alone.